dropping stuff. Hey guys, it's me, Holly Madison. Welcome back to my channel. I just had a major allergy attack, so if I sound stuffy at all, that's why. So I'm continuing my reaction series to Girls Next Door. We are on season 3, episode 9 already. And if you'd hit the like and subscribe, I'd really appreciate it. This is gonna be a weird episode because as I was watching these episodes from season 3, I really love the first half of season 3. And one of the things I noticed is that we're all getting along so well in the episodes. And when I remember filming those things, I remember we were getting along so well. Like, perfect example was the snowboarding episode. We all got along so well. We all totally enjoyed everything we were doing. Yeah, because it was snowboarding, it was more Kendra's thing, but we were still so happy to be doing what we were doing and totally fine if the episode was more about her. You know what I mean? So everybody's getting along so well. And I knew in the back of my head that an episode was going to be coming up, but I didn't think it'd be till much later, where we shoot a scene at Dave & Buster's. And that was a time period where we were not getting along. And the reason I remember that so well is because there was an E executive with us while we were filming at Dave & Buster's. And then the next day I heard from the producer of the show, he said, "Oh my God, I talked to the E executive and he said that the tension was so bad between you and Bridget and Kendra that it was worse than Paris and Nicole." And that was saying something because this was 2007. So this was when E had just bought The Simple Life from Fox. And this was the season where Paris and Nicole weren't getting along and they absolutely refused to film together. They didn't do any scenes together until like the last episode of that season. So to say the tension was worse than Paris and Nicole, who wouldn't even film together, that's saying something. And I was trying to remember like what was leading up to this, like what caused all the discord, like why were we not getting along? And I even, when I saw this episode was coming up and that the Dave & Buster's was here and I wasn't expecting it this early, I asked Bridget, "Do you remember this?" And she hadn't heard the thing where the producer said that the executive said that the tension was so bad, it was worse than Paris and Nicole. And I have no idea why we weren't getting along. So I'm curious to watch this and see if anything jogs my memory. And it's interesting, I should say that the whole reason we shot a scene at Dave & Buster's is because we have this advertising problem with Girls Next Door. Because the show was a show about Playboy, there was this organization, which interestingly enough, this organization has since been categorized as a hate group. But there was this organization called the Florida Family Association, and they decided that a show about Playboy shouldn't be on TV. So they did this whole attack where they would like harass anyone who advertised on the E network in order to get them to try and like pull their advertising and say, "Oh, we're not advertising on that show," to get it taken off the air. So what they tried to do was get sponsors to advertise, but advertise by like doing product placement almost. Like a couple seasons ago, we did the Captain Morgan ads, and that's why. And this is another one with Dave & Buster's. So that's why we're there. I'm seeing the outfit I'm wearing. It's one of those jean skirts that's about as wide as a belt and like a little zip up Playboy hoodie. And it's just, it brings me back in a way, like it's almost visceral, but I can't remember why we weren't getting along. If I had to guess at this point, I would think it was because I was starting to work at the studio and taking that work very seriously and still feeling like it was kind of like, well, everybody has to put everything they're doing aside for Kendra. It was still kind of that thing, but I don't really know. Like, I'm not convinced that's what it was. So I'm going to keep watching. We don't look like we're not getting along, but I remember it being tense. I don't remember why. I just remember it being tense. And then when the producer told me that the executive noticed something was off, like I believed it. And I'm saying my MO was to have to go around and play all the games, and I was successfully played all the games. So it looks like everything's good on here. I wish I had some other context besides this. Like, why were we so mad? And it's just so weird to me because, like I said, the past 8 episodes before this, I feel like it looks like we're really getting along. And my memories of filming all that stuff, we were really getting along. So what changed? Have I blocked it from my memory? I could be imagining it, but a couple of the shots, like there's one shot of her at the table and one shot of her when we're all riding these motorcycles. It's like a motorcycle game. where Kendra looks a little off, like she's kind of pissed and holding back, but I could be imagining that. I don't know. Like maybe I'm looking too hard for things, but I do remember that night was really tense, and I wish I knew why. I mean, maybe I'll get more clues as I watch this episode, but I got no clues watching that scene from Dave & Buster's. And if I had to guess, I would say maybe things were really tense. Like, I don't know what the actual thing would have been that would have made us all pissed off. But at this point, we're like halfway through shooting season 3. So we've all got like a little bit more confidence. We're feeling a little more value just because we have value as being characters on this show, which was a hit. But we're also getting to a place where I'm going to work at the studio, and I'm very much serious about that job. I'm treating it like it's a full-time job. And I think there was a part of me that it's not like I expected like extra respect, like get out of my way, I have this big new job now. But I think I did expect to have that part of my life respected in that, oh, Holly's got work to do. You know what I mean? And I was still being treated a lot like, oh, go stand over here, we're waiting for Kendra, kind of a thing. And I don't know if I'm explaining this right, because it's not like I wanted more attention or more camera time because I was working or anything like that. It's just I kind of wanted my time respected a little bit more, I think, and I think that was reasonable. And also, this was a period of time where I think Kendra had a manager, because we saw him back in episode 4 of this season. So she was kind of allowed to like do outside things, like do club promotions, which back then, if you were a celebrity and you just showed up at a nightclub, you could get paid like a lot of money just for one night. So she was allowed to do that every now and again, but like Bridget and I weren't. But still, I don't know like what the thing is, like what would have made everybody mad that night, what would have been the straw that broke the camel's back. I have no idea. So the first scene is me going out to a farm, and it's like a pasture, and we are doing a Playmate shoot that I'm producing for the first Playmate shoot. I'm heading up after doing Tamara's back in episode 4. This was a Playmate named Patrice. She's so gorgeous, from Las Vegas. And one of her interests, she said, was playing football. So we decided to shoot her story pictures as her and a bunch of other girls playing football. And the story pictures are the clothed pictures that would accompany a Playmate pictorial, because of course there would be all the nudes, but then there would be these little pictures in the feature that would kind of like show the girl just doing something in her everyday life. So you kind of got a feel for her personality. I am looking like Rumpelstiltskin in a black sweatsuit, and a couple other Playmates, I think it's Courtney and Monica, are wearing cute little football outfits, and so is Patrice, and we're gonna shoot these pictures. I mean, Patrice is just so gorgeous, like such a pretty face, like such an amazing body. She should have been Playmate of the Year. Oh my gosh, I forgot Bridget in her room, because we never see it shot from this one angle. She had like rows of cabinets for like closet storage space, which made sense because we had so many costumes and things and outfits from going out. I forgot about those. So Bridget is packing to go to Chicago so she can go to the Halloween convention. And this episode is going to be another episode where the 3 of us are completely split off. We already saw an episode like that. It was season 3, episode 4, just a few episodes ago. It was the one where I'm working at the studio, Kendra's looking at condos, and Bridget was doing like hosting or something. And even though like I love the part of me working at the studio, like I didn't like the whole episode because we were just so pulled apart and there was no like synastry with anything we were doing. So I'm wondering if this episode's going to be similar. I mean, we're already 4 minutes in and it doesn't feel that way just because we had like the Dave & Buster's scene. And then we had the scene with me and Patrice and the other Playmates. Like even though I'm just in that and Bridget and Kendra aren't, it still has that feeling of camaraderie and everything with the Playmates. And then I'm in Bridget's room in the next scene. So maybe it won't feel as split apart and awkward as that other one did, but we shall see. It's interesting that I just compared this with episode 4 because Kendra's scene is she's going back down to San Diego to now fix up the condo that she was looking at in episode 4. And there's this scene where Bridget and her mom are walking, and I always remember this scene for some reason because she's trying to throw her scarf over her shoulder and the wind keeps blowing it back and they have a sound effect that goes wee, wee every time it does. Oh my gosh, so then it cuts back to me at the mansion and there's this great shot of the mansion with a perfect rainbow over the top of it. I never noticed that before. And then there's this scene where some of the staff are helping me unload this really large desktop computer that I can use for work at the house, and I'm setting it up in the dining room, or they are, and I'm like going, I'm like sweating to death. And then I make a comment later about how, wow, I didn't even lift anything, but I'm sweating to death. And I'm wondering why that was. I am wearing a sweatshirt, so maybe I just overestimated the temperature of that day or underestimated the temperature of that day. And then I wondered, like, was I doing fertility treatments already? But I definitely wasn't, because this was 2007 and I wouldn't have done that till 2008. But when I was doing fertility treatments back then, they had me on Lupron to stimulate egg production. And it gives you like menopause symptoms, like the hot flashes. And those were crazy. Like you literally just heat up out of nowhere. And I remember being at the studio working and just like taking off my shirt, not being naked, like I have a tank top underneath, but just like taking off layers and just like fanning myself. And people were like, what is wrong with her? Because nobody knew what I was doing. Okay, so then it has me saying, I think being at the mansion without Bridget and Kendra, it's a little bit quieter. And then it cuts to me saying, but there's still girls at the house. And it makes it sound like I'm mad about it. And I know I wouldn't have been. Like I loved hanging out with the other girls at this point in time. And I worked at the studio. Like I was arranging to have girls come out to like test for Playmates. So I wasn't mad about it. And you can tell it's another Frankenbited soundbite because it's like the tone in my voice just shifts. So Hef's in the side dining room, which was called the med room, talking to the girls. And I'm just looking at like the molding on the wall behind him. And it's just so pretty, like so 1920s pretty. That room was a really pretty room, but it was kind of like, you know, it could have been upkept better. You know what I noticed on some of these episodes is I forgot that Hef used to wear like these thick white athletic socks with like his slippers. And comfortable, I'm sure, but I forgot about that. Oh my gosh, so Bridget takes her mom to this place in Chicago called Super Dog, and there's these really kitschy statues of like a hot dog, a male hot dog, and a girl hot dog. I love stuff like that. I think I've seen this place on like the Food Network or something. Bridget and her mom are eating Super Dogs, and they have to put a slurping noise when Bridget drinks. How many times do I have to say how much I hate the bodily function noises? It's so gross. I think if I could change one thing about the show, nothing personal to like make me look better or anything, but just like something to make the show better, I would take out those disgusting bodily function sounds. So then they have some new interstitials in this episode. It shows me in my bathroom set, which is similar to the one you see at the opening of the show, but I'm like in a different outfit and all my dogs are there. So then it shows me saying, when Bridget and Kendra are gone, it's a good opportunity for me to show Hef that life doesn't stop when you only have one girlfriend. And then we're looking at Patrice's pictures, and I feel like they're kind of trying to frame it like, oh, well, Hef's still being pervy with other girls. But I never felt like he was like that during this time period, like earlier in my relationship with him. But during this time period, when I was working at the studio, I always felt like things were really professional, and I never felt like he was creeping on any of the girls or anything. So I kind of like resent that little juxtaposition, but whatever they think they have to do to make it funny. I'm looking at Patrice's pictures, and I do not know why she wasn't Playmate of the Year. Like, I'm sure I could tell you why if I sat and thought about, well, who was Playmate of the Year and why did she get picked? But I don't know why. And then they had a new interstitial of Bridget where she's on a swing in her bedroom. And I think she wishes that swing was real. I mean, I would. I'm surprised the swing didn't become a thing after she saw that, honestly. I'm gonna ask her that one day. Did you ever think about installing that swing? So Bridget takes her mom to the Playboy offices in Chicago. She gets to see a mock-up of the calendar that's coming out. And then she introduces her to Gary, who was somebody that I worked under. I forget what his title was, but as the director, dropping stuff, as the director of the Playmate shoots, like I worked underneath him. And you can see on his office on the wall, he has these tiny little like card size versions of the centerfolds, so he can see like what all the recent centerfolds look like. And I would get copies of those too when I worked there. I still have them somewhere in one of my planners. They're cute. So when Bridget gets to the Halloween convention, you can see there's a display of the Playboy Halloween costumes, which the three of us modeled. And that wasn't covered on the show. I think that would have been the type of thing that totally would have been covered on the show, except whenever we shot it, we just weren't filming because we would only film, usually we would do about a season a year, and we would only film about half the year. So the other half of the year, we were just out of luck. If we were doing something cool or interesting or would have been good eye candy for the show, we just wouldn't have been able to cover it because the production company wasn't going to film it unless they had a budget to film it. And unless the show was ordered, you know, we don't have a budget. So this year, the year of this episode, 2007, we shot 2 seasons in 1 year. So we were filming most of 2007, but every other year it was only filming a few months out of the year. Oh my God. So we're back at the scene with Kendra at the condo, and her grandpa comes down with a paper towel in his hand. He goes, oh, here's why the drain wouldn't drain. And there's so much hair in the drain. Like, I'm eating right now and I can't really think about it or I gag. But was that real? I mean, I guess it could have been, but it's extreme. It looks like a whole animal's in his hand. It's kind of sad because you hear Bridget saying when she's packing up in Chicago, I don't get to see my mom as much as I'd like. And I think that's really sad. And just a commentary on how we were expected to be at the mansion like all the time, like perfect attendance. Which I get, you want like your girlfriend to be around a lot of the time, but like, you have more than one. Like, what's the point if there can't be like some rotating in and out? And also, I've said this before, but I feel like Kendra kind of had like a mental health advantage because her family was so close in San Diego. And I feel like there's just something about knowing your family's closer. Not that Kendra was like probably dying to go move back in with her mom or anything, but I think there's just something about knowing that you have support close by if you need it. Okay, so we're ending this episode with Hef and I in the bedroom watching a movie. And he asked, what do you want to watch? I said, Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. And that's not usually what we would have watched. We watched classic movies a lot, but mostly we watched documentaries, or we would watch The Sopranos or Sex and the City. And on the nights we did pick a classic movie, it was usually something a little more obscure and like toward the 1930s. Like a Marilyn Monroe film wouldn't have been what he usually would have wanted to watch. And the reason we're picking that and watching it is because it's from the Fox archive, and Fox was a producing partner on the show, so the producer could use clips of it for free. My dogs on the bed are so fluffy, they're like walking puffballs. Oh my God, I hated shooting these scenes. This is the first one like this, but there's gonna be one later when we do like this best of episode that's really horrific. But I hated doing the scenes where it's like Hef and I in bed watching something and you had to be like all lovey-dovey while the cameras are like right there on you. It's the most awkward thing ever. And you're just like watching TV while they watch you. Like, it's one thing to be filmed while you're doing something, but being filmed doing nothing is really awkward. And then Kendra comes in while we're watching the movie and she sits down on the bed. And when they point the camera at her, you can see in the background on my side of the bed, there's these shelves on the side of the bed, and you can see like my real estate books and everything, but it's never mentioned I'm in real estate school still to this day. And then Bridget comes in with some gifts for us, and then they stay on the bed to like finish watching the movie with us. And that would have never happened. Like, there were times we would gather in the room and like watch something together, but it was usually something of special interest to us. Like, I don't know what it would have been, but like a rough cut of Girls Next Door or something. They wouldn't have just came in the middle of a movie and been like, oh, we're gonna sit here and watch the rest of the movie. And you can see how awkward it is too, because Bridget and Kendra are both like way scooted to the other side of the bed. It's like so awkward. Okay, so takeaways from this episode. My favorite part of the episode, I think, was seeing Patrice. I love her. She's so pretty. I loved working on that shoot. It was so much fun. I loved seeing all the fun stuff Bridget saw in Chicago. My least favorite part of this episode is one that I can't figure out why we were all so pissed at each other at Dave & Buster's. Like, that is a mystery that I need to solve and get to the bottom of. I also noticed, I feel like whatever we were mad about at Dave & Buster's, it must have been some straw that broke the camel's back type of thing, just on top of like stuff that had been irritating us for a while. And I feel like watching this video, it kind of seems like it's an episode where we're all kind of split apart, but it seems like Kendra especially is like kind of cut out of the group, and not in a way where they've done in the past where they really try and like make her the main character. It just seems really like splintered out of it, because like you have these other scenes where like Bridget and I are interacting and Kendra just seems like very far removed. And I feel like maybe we're getting to a point in the timeline where she was just kind of like, I'm over this. I can't wait to be out of here. And we can all feel that energy. But yet, because she's the producer's favorite, we all feel like we have to fall in line behind her and whenever she wants to show up, like on a whim. So I think maybe that could be an element of it, but I don't really know what like the actual thing would have been. But yeah, that's my thoughts on that episode. The next episode next week is one called Home Sweet Sweet, and we go back to Vegas for Hef's birthday. So I will see you guys then. Bye. Oh wait, I'm also wondering if like the Dave & Buster's thing, even though it was the cold open for this episode, I wonder, could it have been shot way after all the other like meat and potatoes of this episode was shot? Like maybe if I continue watching, I'll see other things that give me a clue, because maybe the Dave & Buster's thing, since it was an ad, was shot way later and just like inserted as the cold open of that episode. Because I think in season 3, we're dealing with a pretty long lead time here. So maybe I'll see other clues and be able to get back to that. But yeah, I'll see you guys next week. Next week is an episode called Home Sweet Sweet, and we are going back to Vegas for Hef's birthday. So I'll see you guys then. Bye.